I think we are clear that we want to make a difference in human health. We want to go behind problems where there is a significant unmet medical need. So one of the areas that we are venturing now into is women's health, because there's a lot of focus on the underrepresentation of women in clinical trials, or the number of companies that actually want to work in the women's disease space, right? So we believe that there is a huge unmet medical need there, and there is a difference that we could make using our technology, and where we believe that this is possible, right? So I think as a company, we want to make that difference. That's been the core for anything that we've done and what we've chosen as therapeutic areas to go behind as well.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Speciale Focus, brought to you by Speciale Invest, a leading early-stage deep tech VC firm in India. I'm Hari Arakli, and in this episode, I bring you a conversation with the founders of Peptris Technologies, a startup that sits at the intersection of India's scientific ambition in biotech and life sciences and the hard realities of drug discovery. Peptris was started in 2019 by Venkatasubramanian Narayanan, Anand Budni, Amit Mahajan, and Shridhar Narayanan. The first three bring extensive experience in computer science and engineering and deep learning algorithms, while Shridhar is an experienced drug hunter with 18 clinical candidates and one marketed drug to his name. Peptris, the name is a portmanteau of peptides and the computer game Tetris, is a deep tech startup developing artificial intelligence to modernize the traditionally slow and expensive process of drug discovery. Led by the multidisciplinary quartet of founders, the company successfully reached a major milestone last year by licensing an AI-identified molecule for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, a rare genetic disorder. Their proprietary platform, a suite of unsupervised learning algorithms, navigates the massive chemical space to predict how molecules will interact with biological targets while ensuring safety and efficacy. Rather than pursuing a service-based business model, the founders focus on building an intellectual property portfolio of therapeutic candidates for unmet medical needs, including oncology and inflammation. By taking advantage of computational efficiency and strategic partnerships, they aim to transition discoveries from digital predictions to tangible treatments for patients globally. Their long-term vision involves expanding into personalized medicine and complex biological entities to fundamentally improve human health. Thank you all for very generously making time for me at short notice. So welcome to Speciale Focus. So to get us started, it might be really interesting for people if you jumped right into one of your important milestones from last year, where you all said you're the first company in India to license out an AI-led molecule discovered via your platform as a sort of a standout example of the work that you're doing. And then maybe you can switch over to what is the big picture over there. And then through the course of the conversation, let's circle back to the story of Peptris. I'll stop there. It's all yours. Please jump in.
So from the recent milestone that we achieved, right? So one was licensing our first AI-led drug discovery program to a licensing stage, right? So this molecule essentially is a drug which has been approved and on the market for a number of years for the treatment of diabetes. Using our AI, we came out with alternate biological targets that this molecule could potentially engage with. And, evaluating those targets and what other functions those could potentially affect in the human body, we came out with a hypothesis that this molecule would potentially be useful in a disease called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a disease which predominantly affects boys. And The diagnosis essentially happens at the age of around 3 or 4. Uh, it's a genetic disorder with a protein called dystrophin being formed or malformed in the body, right? Especially in the muscles. And this leads to a progressive loss of function of the muscles, mainly muscles in the arms, legs, the diaphragm, and the heart. And over a period of time, the quality of life of the individual deteriorates, which ultimately leads to fatality somewhere in the age group of around anywhere between 18 to 25 years. So we felt this was a problem that we could tackle with AI when we started the program. Um, there is a significant unmet medical need that goes with the disease, in the sense that the only treatment that is available in India is a steroid. Globally, there are a few more drugs that are approved, which include small molecules and also antisense oligonucleotides. However, access to some of these are very difficult in India, and also the cost that is associated with some of these therapies is significantly high. So, for us to deploy our AI for a disease like this was an ideal situation, because the core philosophy within the organization is to make a difference in the lives of patients, improve their quality of life, not only add the number of years to life, but also life to the years that the person has. Right? I think that is uh, a core value that we have within the organization, and which is where rare diseases is a focus area for the organization itself. So, from our perspective, identifying this molecule and then taking it through all the biological testing that is involved in the drug discovery process made a huge impact, right? And I think as an organization, and especially working with engineers who I would say understand biology in some sense, but have not experienced it, I think is very important. It was very important for the team to go through this journey. And the journey actually has, I would say, brought the team together in a variety of different ways, and contributed to us moving the molecule from computer to getting as close to the patient now. So the partner to whom we have licensed this molecule uh, is getting ready to file for an IND application with the US FDA. So this molecule would potentially get into clinical development, hopefully within the next 6 to 8 months. And that's the target that we had set for ourselves. So we are very much in line with where we want to go with that. And if it does work in the patient, it would be an absolute life-changing thing for several patients um, who don't have access to some of these advanced therapies. I'll stop here. I'll let the others chime in as well.
Yeah, I think adding to what Sridhar was just told now, in terms of like how our journey started per se. I think like when we first were looking at DMD as a problem, as in like in terms of like the unmet need and how we can translate it. The first thing was to first understand the biology behind it, as in like to being able to do something meaningful in that space. And that I think we work with multiple strategies, saying that okay, what are the different ways in which we can tackle this problem. So we actually started with about 4 very distinct strategies that we will tackle the problem with. And that also gave us that other confidence, saying that look, we are going to use AI to solve the problem. Now, it was still in its infancy, as in like we don't know how successful we'll be, what kind of outcomes we would have. And so having more than one shot at the goal made a lot more sense. Instead of saying that, okay, we tried one strategy and with the AI we couldn't translate it, or with or the strategy itself we found some bottlenecks later kind of stuff. So in that sense, I think looking back, one of the good things that we did was like started with multiple strategies. And then, of course, as we say, AI powered drug discovery. So that's what Peptris is about. And when we think about it, both the AI and the drug discovery angles have to work in tandem, have to work very closely. So one is uh, the biologist, basically in this case, Shridhar, coming out with what are the different strategies, and then the AI coming up and filling the rest of it, like running from it towards like trying to get a molecule, discover a molecule, and move closer. And so we did quite some interesting work, a lot of understanding. So it is like, I would say, for the last 5-6 years that we've been at Peptris, everybody has learned something new every day. That is the kind of thing that is happening here as a team. We learn first about the domain itself, problems in the domain. We learn from each other in terms of like how to solve different problems. One thing that we always have believed is AI predictions and so on as to at a broad level are just worthless unless you're able to translate it to something meaningful. And that is the key part of this puzzle, saying that so once the problem was defined, getting to a bunch of solutions, saying that okay, predicted solutions was the first piece of the puzzle. Then the next one was, of course, trying them out in the relevant biological models, and then slowly moving towards the clinic. That journey has also been quite satisfying in terms of like how we have and I think I made one statement saying that like how every day we learned something new and so on. I think I'll let Anand talk about our journey with the biological assays and the models by themselves as to what we learn. And one thing that we realized as engineers is the accuracies and so on that we were talking about in the engineering space versus the biological space are vastly different, because the problems in biology are still quite abstract, and the way we measure, the way we interpret, all of it is like uh, it's like kind of very interesting for an engineer to look at the biology work. Over to you.
Briefly, I have one question before you jump in, Anand. When you say strategies, I mean, very loosely, are you talking about looking at the different ways in which this potential medicine might work in the human body or might target a problem?
So what we're looking at different ways to tackle the problem through various other target mechanisms. So biologically, are there ways in which, so if you look at the disease itself, right, there are multiple components to the disease. So it's not a single aspect disease, right? So you have inflammation coming in, you have fibrosis coming in, you have diabetes or other complications adding to the disease, right? So you could potentially have multiple aspects which contribute to the totality of the disease. So when we talk about strategies, the strategies could potentially affect one of them or could affect all of them, right? So if for example, when I mentioned diabetes, it's the main therapy that is being used for DMD today is steroids. When you use steroids in children, there are multiple complications that come up, diabetes being one of them. So can you use this drug along with a steroid to minimize the side effects of the steroid, right? Could it potentiate some of the beneficial effects of the steroid? So when we look at strategies are different modalities of treatment that could potentially benefit the same disease, not necessarily acting through the same pharmacological mechanism, right? They could work through different mechanisms, but ultimately come and converge on a benefit for the disease. So you would look at multiple of these things, especially in multifactorial diseases.
Or in a engineering sense, if I had to tell, our body is a very complicated machine, and lot of knobs are there internally within the body to help make sure that body sustains. There is an equilibrium for all the function that we do. Sometimes some things go bad, but still there's a lot of redundancy and the correction happens on its own. But if you have to solve a disease, which is in a case where it's already gone bad, which knobs do you really want to turn? Or which knobs you want to know, either up or down? This is the biological way of looking at how a body works, right? And that itself is a very complicated stuff. There are many ways to do it. Maybe you can turn knob A, maybe you can up, and maybe turn knob B down, right? So these are different strategies that Sridhar was saying. But the critical problem that when we looked at this case is like biology is complex. A lot of learning needs to be done. There is another part which is a chemistry part of it, wherein what kind of chemical entities might help us to turn up or down knobs is also a very critical thing, right? Because that is the end of the day is a drug that we are trying to discover. And we felt that is a piece where the engineering principles can be put in, because chemistry space is extremely large. The way to construct the chemistry is known, pretty much known, using machines in the labs and so on. And if somehow build in algorithms to understand this chemistry space and help tune the knobs that are required, then we bridge the gap of trying to find drugs in a very quicker and also cost-effective way. And that is where, we thought we could make a difference. And hence that journey for Peptris started.
Can you talk a bit about, as I mentioned, what's a good way to look at the big picture here? At one level, you are trying to find new molecules. At another level, you are building sort of a platform that may have many other users and so on. So if you put it in the context of healthcare, in India and potentially global markets, what's the big picture?
So if you really look at the really big picture, as in like if you look at human health as this one. So for one thing is there is this example where we keep telling like we are a very interesting organism in terms of trying to understand ourselves, like what is happening inside and how can we correct it. And that is the basic intelligence that we have got to really basically probe into ourselves and figure out what is happening internally. How do I speak? How do I feel? How do I sense? What is happening when I lift my hand? What are all the different chemical reactions? And very interestingly, with all the development that has happened so far over our lifetimes, as in like over history, we just understand about 10% of the whole thing, as in like how these systems work. And the last, I would say, the 2 or 3 decades have been phenomenal in terms of furthering this knowledge. With every passing year now, we are probably uncovering more about the human body than we probably did the last decades. Yeah. And how is this happening? And that is because we are being able to do a lot more experiments. We are being able to do a lot more hypothesis testing over the last few years. Yeah. And one of the things that you should understand is like we are only being able to observe or able to measure very small parts of the system internally. So the example I generally give is like when you go and take your medical test, yeah, you are getting a snapshot of how your health is. Yeah. So it is like taking one snapshot from a movie and trying to decide what's going to happen next in this movie or what has happened so far. You being able to guess it because you're not really like sampling it so often and we are not building hypothesis which is like based on time within an individual and so on. And in the last probably like decade is when we have been able to solve some of these problems, not all of it, some of these problems to be able to do more meaningful data collection and prediction based on that and build better hypothesis. With all that, we are still at the infancy of understanding the human body itself. Now, say we have understood part of it. Have we been able to devise mechanisms? Have been able to find therapeutics which will solve some of the problems that we have identified? Yeah. And that is again a very small percentage. So in effect, all the medicines that we have got so far, that we have discovered and that we are testing out and so on, probably handles just about less than 3-4% of what we currently do, or what we currently we think we will.
So I think the way I got your question was about, as in on one side we have AI, and on other side the impact of AI on healthcare, and in our scope it is drug discovery. So that is true. So Peptris, I mean, if you look at the mix of our team, we come from partly computer science background, and some part of the team comes from pharma background, and that is actually a reflection of what we see as the big picture. There is technology at the heart of it, but yet the overall goal remains to make a useful impact on human health finally. So and I wouldn't say that AI is going to solve human health or in next 1 or 2 years. I think it is going to be a long journey, but AI will definitely facilitate the speed of progress that we make in making sure that we have an impact, a positive impact in people's lives and health.
Our goal is to improve human health in variety of angle. There are diseases. There's of course longevity, because life adds to end. Whatever life we spend, how qualitatively how good it is. Are we able to walk all the way and so on? So if you look at human health per se, there are a variety of angles. Whatever we discover through our journey, if we have a knobs to meet our ideal condition, that's where the human health positively comes in. And to do that, we need tools such as AI or anything else that helps us to go there very quickly. And that's what we're trying to.
Since you mentioned how the team brings sort of diverse and also sort of, I think I've heard Narayanan say this, mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. Sort of natural point at which to ask you a little bit of the story of how Peptris started, and you all founded the company 7 odd years ago. How did you all meet? Were you colleagues before in early organizations? Mutual interest brought you together.
Yeah. So those parts are boring. So we start with a birthday party. That's how we make it sound glamorous. And I think Shridhar is the best person to tell us how it all started with the birthday party.
So, Venkat's son and my son are friends since school days, right? And they went to the same school, same class, same group of friends. So we ended up being chauffeurs for our sons to visit their birthday parties, right? And as parents, you don't get invited inside the birthday party. So we ended up spending time outside, maybe sitting at a coffee shop or, just talking about what happened in each of our professional careers. And, one thing led to another, and discussions around how the 3 gentlemen were using AI to solve problems with display systems kind of triggered thoughts in me. These were very early days of use of AI in pharma. So this is way back, I would say 2015, 2016. And one of those sessions kind of mentioned to Venkat that, maybe you should think about using AI for something more than just display systems. Can you think of using AI for healthcare? And so conversations, one led to the other, and ended up with us sitting down in a coffee shop and, literally on the back of a napkin, me giving them a 101 on what is drug discovery. And they were very interested in the problem itself and thought that AI could potentially be used for something like this. And that kind of triggered some thought process in them, and they started working on some of the algorithms that could potentially be used for drug discovery.
Do you remember where the coffee shop was?
Yes. So this was in Kodigeveli.
Sorry, continue.
So no. Incidentally, like we still what do you call? So the first meetings were between Shridhar and myself, where these discussions led to something like, okay, there is something that we can do meaningfully. And the next, there were discussions between myself, Anand, and Amit. So these are like we three of us know each other for close to like 25 plus years now, and so when I kind of like talked about what I had heard and what kind of problems that we can potentially solve and make an impact on, there was this instant so let us go talk, at least let us find out, at least we'll learn something new from there. And then the next discussion started. So we started meeting more often, as in like Sridhar used to come to our part of the city. We used to have some good conversations. We went to his lab. He was setting up a lab in Dadbalapura. So we used to go there. So I think more or less the next few months were like there were these meetings almost happening every month. Yeah. And we go back, we read something, come back and ask questions. So that is when Sridhar introduced us to a larger group, as in like in terms of colleagues that he had worked with. So Sridhar was like answering all the biology questions for us, or at least trying to educate us on what the problems were. He also introduced us to quite a few of his colleagues from his past life in terms of chemists, medicinal chemists, and so on. And conversations together led us to a conviction that yes, that is the problem is big. That was very clear. But how can we solve it? Do we have the right set of tools? What is the current state of art there? What can be the impact and so on? I think the next couple of years were primarily spent on doing that. And I think with every passing year, what we realized is that that the trivial model that we had of the problem, yeah, started becoming larger, started becoming more complex, and so on. And we started enjoying every bit of it. And of course, if we had known everything on day zero, would we have embarked on it and done that? That is probably a question that I'll not answer. Yeah, and I will reserve it. But I think this slow transition from trying to use tech to actually using tech and so on has really like enriched us over the past few years. I think Anand, you want to add something?
We were engineers, okay? We didn't take biology subject even when we were 11th standard. The predominant factor is either there is too much knowledge, too much to read. It's not our cup of tea kind of thing, right? When Shridhar explained, the way Venkat was saying, when he explained the problem to us, he educated us, but he didn't scare us. I mean, he didn't tell the complexity of a problem per se. So I think that brings on to the two things. Whenever we feel that tech can be applied, trying to trivialize a problem is equally important. I mean, of course, the complexity of the problem exists. We need to find a very novel solution and all that. But as the humans, we shouldn't be scared of it. So trivializing a problem. And the second part you mentioned is, before you solve the problem, we should love the problem. As long as we all had that feeling that, this problem has a scope and we all connect to it, because if you solve it, there is a multiple impact that you can actually bring onto the system. Two things that, made us come together.
You all formally incorporated Peptris in 2018, 17, and was 2019. Okay, yeah. So much. Yeah, we should probably along the way talk about that as well. I think the world has changed so much since then through COVID and generative AI and whatnot. Also, again, keeping in mind a general audience, is there a story behind the name Peptris?
I think he's the best person.
The inventor of the name. So I came up with, I think, 100 names, and Tetris was finally approved. It's a portmanteau of peptides and Tetris, the game which most of us might have played. And it kind of reflects, as in, it's not a force fit in the sense that the way proteins are long peptide chains. So the way drug discovery is about fitting a molecule into a protein, it kind of resembles how the tiles fit into the game of Tetris. So that's how the name was kind of created, and everyone liked it. But it came after trying out, I think, at least 100 different names.
This is how Shridhar explained to us as a problem. The drug discovery problem is trying to find a key to a lock. Proteins are locks inside the body, and small molecules are keys. You need to fit it correctly. That's how the description was. And being engineers, this is the game that we thought that I should invent algorithm so that if you play this game correctly, maybe we'll find answers.
Can you bring us to today in the sense that at the time of your earliest discussions, you probably had some ideas of what might be interesting to look at as a problem to solve, but also eventually something that would become a viable commercial entity. How has that evolved today in the sense that how has Peptris itself evolved or is evolving as a company today?
I think one thing that we should be very honest about is we are evolving every day. Yeah. And if you ask me in 2019, if you had asked us that we would have had something licensed and we would be sitting here in a podcast, I don't think we would have even guessed anything remotely close. We had a lot of ambitions right from the beginning. So there is no doubt about it. So we even had a roadmap, which is still, I think, one of I have it in my this one, which was scribbled on a piece of paper in cafe room, yeah, where we had said that okay, the next 3 years, how is it going to be? So that was from 2019 or early 2020, before COVID, just before COVID. Till 22, where we said if we do all these things right and we have these solutions, we should have something licensed by 22. Yeah, but at the same time, if you had asked us what we were planning to do, we said we're going to do a bit of services to keep the house running, and a drug discovery on say 2 or 3 programs that we will focus on. And that is all about it. Yeah. And the PPTs from those era also, like when we go back, we actually smile at it and smile at ourselves also. And so it has evolved quite a lot. And some of it is reality in terms of, I guess, we didn't do a licensing in 22, we did it in 24, but we had what do you call? I wouldn't say underestimated or overestimated. Of course, COVID hit and the whole world changed. It also helped us a lot to introspect during that period, to build some of the key algorithms and so on. And in 24, by that time, we had the first taste of some of these things. It was not like too far from what we had set out to do, but it was definitely not something that we had clearly planned and executed and we reached there, because at the end of the day, we realized that biology is a lot more complex and a lot more demanding in terms of the kind of groundwork that needs to be done to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Anand, you want to add something to that first discussions from Cafe Rome? No?
I think it is that I don't think we had planned that we will actually reach this stage. Idea was to build an algorithm and see how we can help pharma companies. That's how the idea started. But over that period, we also recognized that, since we want to reach the patient, there are multiple ways we can also start on our own. So this is a mismatch of both these ideas to come to a stage. Finally, we decided that we should do on our own, reach the patient. That is the quickest way which we can make an impact, and also a way that is more valuable. Hence, we put a lot of effort to reach at this stage. But yeah, initial days, I think it was all the mishmash of these ideas, services, trying to work with the pharma company, and then seeing what we can do on our own itself.
And we actually started doing some of that, right? So if you look at our initial days, we did some projects with some of the pharma companies, and that also brought in a lot of learning into the team in terms of what would work, what would not work, what would be interesting to a pharma company. And all of that at the end crystallized the thought that being an organization which creates its own intellectual property and licenses that would be a far better value add to the ecosystem than just being a pure play services player. And I think that has kind of got validated over a period of time now. If you look at the last few years, you have maybe 30, 40 such companies only in India, right? Which are doing a lot of the AI based services part, but are not doing the drug discovery part, right? There is a certain degree of value creation that they are doing, but that value creation, I would say, is very small. But the kind of value creation a company like Peptris can do by creating its own intellectual property and going behind diseases that larger pharma would not go behind, right, is really making an impact on a certain patient population, especially the rare disease patient population.
I think at this point of time, I actually want to tell two things. One is like there should be definitely like from our perspective, and there's been a big shout out to our first backers, as in like our agents and so on. In 21, when we were still like kind of like just out of COVID, and we were trying to figure out like how we want to take the company forward in terms of doing some of the studies, basically the in vivo studies and stuff. So we reached out to our friends and family. Yeah. So of course we did quite a few pitches to VCs and so on, at least 24 VCs. We were too early, as in, and that is the unique, what do you call, single response that we got. So it was not enough as to what we had accomplished by then. Because we were talking about doing well on some benchmarks and things like that. And then, of course, the friends and family backing really helped us to do the next round of studies and so on. So that is when in 23, yeah, we had some very good results based on that initial backing. And that is when Speciale came in. So it took Speciale also quite about 5 to 6 months of conversations with us before they kind of like were convinced that they're going to invest in us. And same period, we had talked to multiple VCs. I would not name them, but at least 2 or 3 dozen VCs around that period. So the challenge was everyone wanted to see some larger success somewhere else so that it can replicate it here and things like that, but not really like trust that we can build something from here in India. And I think Speciale was very different in terms of the way they looked at us and the way they talked to us. And basically, they extracted more information out of us in terms of what the market is, where it is heading, and so on. Because one is like, as deep tech founders, we have a larger vision, but we don't really like explicitly tell it out or make some very grand statement saying that yes, we will be licensing in the next year or things like that. Like we know that that is our goal, but we also are very cautious. This is how we want to reach. These are the steps, and we know that there are multiple milestones before we reach there. But then I think special mention to them in terms of like they kind of got all that information out of us, and then they said that okay, this is something. And I think there is no looking back from that point, because the trajectory has been very different for us since the first institutional investor came into the cap table.
Okay, I'm going to circle back to some of these points again in terms of how important it is to get VCs to understand the scope of your work and so on, and early challenges for this kind of deep science companies in India. But I just want to go back to what you all, where you all left your comments on the business model part, services, and the need to keep the company viable versus the vision and the passion for real drug discovery and being able to make an impact for large numbers of patients and so on. So, what is that looking like today?
So from a business model perspective, I think the four of us are absolutely clear that innovation is the way to go, right? And I don't think we've had any disagreements over the business model per se, right? And this is being something which is being, I think, the DNA of the organization, right? Where as founders, all of us believe that the way to contribute to this particular problem was to do through our own innovation, right? And use of technology to kind of come up with solutions for this kind of problem, right? So I don't see that business model was ever a challenge. And if we reflect on what we've done as on the decisions that we've made, I think we've been vindicated to a large extent in the thought process that we've followed, right? And I think that gives us the added confidence that we are down the right path. Right? And while getting funding has been a challenge, or convincing the ecosystem that such a problem needs to be funded has been, I think we've seen a lot more traction coming in now than what we saw 2 years ago. Right, the number of VCs that even want to come and talk to us without rejecting us from the first slide deck that we sent, I think has changed significantly. So we believe that there's a certain degree of a belief that such organizations can actually deliver, and Peptris in particular can deliver on the problem that we are trying to handle.
I just wanted you to talk about what this means in practical terms, because somewhere you all have mentioned, I think even in the Specialist Summit comments, you talked about how you have a suite of algorithms and so on. Would that be fair to call Peptris now as a platform builder? This is what I want to understand better. Will this be a platform where you will discover new molecules, take it to the market all the way, or will it be a platform that established drug companies can use for their drug discovery work? What's the thinking on this?
I think initially when you began about it, right, the first conflict of services versus that, Shridhar explained about our passion and what we really wanted to do. But if you take away from our passion and see from outside and ask us, but doing the service for others will fetch you money, you can live longer, right? That's a natural way to think about it. When we looked at it, there is another problem with that kind of approach. The approach is the drug discovery problem itself is complex. We don't know the pieces to make it a whole. These pieces, say, if I take algorithm, we don't know the interfaces for it. It means I make an algorithm. How do you judge that algorithm is good or bad? Right? And if I'm serving another company, they are the one who will judge it is good or bad based on all their learnings, all the program that they are doing in biology. And the learning that come back to us will be so minimal. Right? So if I want to solve my own problem, that's the other way to look at it is, if I solve my problem, can I improve my algorithms over a period of time? And we felt it's a much better way to do, because whatever decision a biologist or Shridhar will take, I can now go back and reflect on the algorithm that I actually made that to happen and change everything so that we reach it. Right? So among all the conflicts, naturally it comes to a point where if I really want to solve a problem, we should go all the way and solve it holistically. Then now I have a pieces, as you said, a suite of algorithm that help us to solve it. Now when a third party or a different guy looks at it, does he see it similarly? That's the question that now you're going to ask, saying, if there are other companies who want to use our platform, they need to understand our technology in the first place. It is not technology that is there everywhere. There will be always some guys trying to make different algorithm, different solutions, but the way they come out with the intricacies of it, right, are different. So in our view, currently it is still that we will do it, but we'll be very happy if it explodes, because at the end of the day, an AI should help everybody to come out with drugs, right? It should not be a one man's army kind of thing. It's an ecosystem that needs to develop. And I hope one day we will publish this algorithm in such a way that people can use it very effectively.
What would that mean, publishing the algorithm? Does
Publish in the sense
open
our
sourcing
platform.
it, or?
No, our platform will deliver so people can use the platform on their own. But I think it is a long way for us. We want to make sure it is working for us. And when the confidence and the metrics come very close, then that's when we really want to help others to build their drugs.
So if you think about it, both of them are told two parts of the story, right? Saying that, okay, one is like our conviction on the development and why it helps basically to improve the algorithms, to move faster and to be able to this one. The other part that what was left out implicitly was that, look, why we are not doing services. As in, like, if we start today and we don't have any money in the pack, then services becomes the first alternative. I think we are able to make these conversations and so on because of 2 or 3 things that have happened on the way. One is being able to raise money and say that, yes, we can do programs and we can take larger bets. Because when we raise money, we are not looking at a delta growth compared to an FD or something like that. We are not talking about 1.5% or 6% inflation beating stuff. We are really talking about building real value, real products that will give a very different trajectory to the company. So that is one part of it. And that, I think, makes a big difference. Having the right resources. Now, the next part of it is, how well can we use the ecosystem? Should we solve all the pieces of the puzzle ourselves? As in terms of, we come up with the prediction. How do we test it? How do we ensure that we're able to prove it in an animal model? How do we actually license it? How do we take it forward? How do we go to the patient? So here is where the business model has helped us in terms of, we said, okay, let us focus on our core strength. We wanted to build algorithms, we wanted to solve problems, and we wanted to do a quick feedback on it. So everything other than this is currently outsourced by us. Yeah. So why do we license out a molecule and not take it to the clinic yet? I think if you ask that question, the idea is that, look, we are building our strengths in the initial part of the problem. So we are trying to solve that better, solve that more holistically. While we have found something, we have discovered something, we want that one to reach the market much faster. So collaborate, or rather license it with people who can move that asset faster, while we churn out more assets using our algorithms. Yeah. So the business model is both a function of what we can do best. Do we have enough resources to do it? Yeah. If in, say, 21, if we hadn't raised money, yeah, I think we would have been happy doing services. Yeah, because you are constrained by the resources. Yeah, so that's why I said early backers are quite important and so on, because that is when you know that, okay, you're not really talking about survival, you're talking about growth. Yeah, so you raise money because you want to grow. You raise money not because you want to survive that period. Yeah, and I think that mindset also changes the trajectory. And now when we raise money, yeah, what is going to help us is going to think about it much better. As in, like, the problem solving, more problem solving, taking it more closer to the patient. As in, like, trying to actually do an IND filing and then license it. Yeah, or doing the first clinical trial. So these are things that our aspirations will also grow with it. Yeah? And all this thing, I think, is backed by, one is the confidence that we have the resources to do it, and the confidence that we have been able to do it once or twice already. As in, you have walked that path. You know that you predicted something and somebody could take it to the IND filing. So why not ourselves take it? Yeah. So all that, it's a function of everything.
I would rather summarize this, because you asked about business model. So we are in the business of licensing out molecules which have the potential to solve different diseases. That is what our business model is. We are not doing services. We want to create IP. This way, I think one of your earlier questions was also about the commercial side of it and the problem solving side of it. And this way, there isn't any conflict between these two. We are driven by our passion for problem solving and our passion for making an impact and making money also in the process. So it just brings everything together.
Typically, at what point might you make an IND filing? What should the sort of the state of the molecule be at that point?
So generally, when you look at what is ready for IND filing, the molecule A has demonstrated its potential to treat the disease in various systems, which could be at a level of a protein, it could be level at a cell culture system, it could be at the level of the animal, and far more importantly, demonstrated that it is safer. Right? That if we were to administer this to a human being, the chances that it would cause an adverse reaction is minimal, right? Almost every molecule will have some or the other side effect or adverse reaction. Does it come under the bracket or the large umbrella that it is a manageable side effect, right? And again, it depends on the disease, what that side effect is. So if it's an oncology drug, you could, and the patient is at the last stages of life, you're going to want to do something to save the life. The side effect profile can be slightly worse. But if you're going and treating somebody who's a diabetic, you don't want any of the side effects, right? So you have a band between which you could work in terms of the side effect, depending on what that disease is that you're trying to solve, right? Especially for us, I think it's very important to address this issue because we are working with diseases which are affecting children, like DMD, right? So you want the molecule to be absolutely safe. So when you go to an IND stage, you want to tick all the boxes with respect, not only with respect to efficacy, but also with respect to safety, right? And I think that's where you would start thinking about an IND filing. So today, because we are working, the drug that we've licensed has already been in the market for 20 years. There is an established safety profile. It's probably seen millions of life years of human dosing, right? And I would think that there are really very few number of adverse events that have come out of that drug. So from a safety perspective, it's very safe. Now we've shown efficacy in the animal, so it gives us an increased confidence to take this into a pediatric population and say, yes, this is something that could potentially be tested in pediatrics. And that is what exactly we've taken, we've licensed it and the partner is taking forward.
It's when your licensed partner brings a medicine to the market, that's when you will also make revenue from it? Or are there earlier milestones?
So there are earlier milestones. So you could, I think the way we've structured this current deal is slightly, it's a very traditional model. So you have a small upfront coming in, depending on what stage of development the molecule was on. There are certain milestones which, if we attain, the molecule crosses, then there are payments that are due to come in. And then once it gets into the clinic, there is a certain milestone. And once it is approved, there is a certain milestone. And once it gets into the market, then you have royalties on sales, right? So it's a very traditional model. I think this is a model that gets evolved with every molecule that you like to license, right? And it depends on the partnering company also and what they bring to the table. With this particular licensing, this partner has the ability to do the formulation development, do the clinical development, and probably take it to the market in some regions of the world. So what we've done is we've retained the rights to the BRICS territories with us on this one. We've given them the rest of the world. So that allows us a certain degree of risk. Should the molecule actually come to the market, we have the BRICS regions in which we can actually license this out to another partner or take it to the market ourselves, right? So which is where the business model, I think, will keep evolving as we grow as a company.
And in terms of the drug discovery that you all are working on, you all call it small molecules or chemical molecules?
Yeah.
Or your algorithms also work for biological candidates?
So Yeah. So algorithms, okay, in the way of therapeutic intervention, right? We call something as small molecules when their total weight or the molecular weight is less than certain threshold, say 500 or 700 at that max. The bigger ones, they're still possible. Say some of the natural products go beyond 700, and then the peptides go larger than that. As an algorithm perspective, if I see all these are chemical entities, and we built an algorithm to understand the chemistry in a little bit different way. So we cater to small natural products and smaller peptides. We just don't look at the very large proteins. Other than that, we cater to all of these. But the focus area has always been the small molecule.
I also wanted you all to explain the AI aspect of it in sort of simple terms, and to the extent that you can simplify it. What is the AI in your algorithms? What is it that it is doing? And maybe we can also talk about how that makes a difference versus traditional drug discovery processes.
So I think I'll try attempt this question and then pitch in. Okay, as I was mentioning, right, as an engineer, we thought the chemistry space is where we can actually put in the engineering principles, because biology is too uncertain and a little bit unpredictable. So whatever accuracies you want, it's not where the algorithms can be actually deployed. So when we concentrate on the chemistry part, and what does chemistry have? Chemistry has a very large space of molecules that you can construct. There are hardly 10 organic atoms that if you look at it, and then you combine in various permutations and say this can be a drug, right? Now that is as simple as that. So you take some 10 atom, combine them, and you should ideally get a drug. But for it to become a drug, there are tons of properties that are required. As Shridhar put it, you consume a pill, it should get into our system. It should be soluble in the first place to get into system. Our system should not throw it out saying it is junk, right? It should get into the required cells or tissues wherever it should get into, so that you can treat. If a drug has to go to a brain, it has to reach the brain. If it has to go to a skeletal system, it has to go to skeletal. So all these parts have become very critical. So you take this chemistry as one agent or one tool and see what all it should do. Right? If you list them down, there are a variety of properties that we need to predict for it. Since the chemistry space is extremely large, it is impractical for any few human beings to do it. Now the theoretical space runs to 10⁻60. All we can synthesize as from humans perspective, it is still around 100 billion, right? And 100 billion is also not very easy to run through. You just can't put a brute force computations to solve any of these. You need smarter systems to understand the chemistry space as it is. And that is where we built our first algorithm. This algorithm understands the molecules in an unsupervised way, just like ChatGPT is trying to do with English, right? We built an algorithm that looks at all the English paragraphs written and makes meaning of each words or each paragraph, each sentences. In a very similar way, we built an unsupervised learning model that learns about the chemistry space and it understands the meaning of what a molecule is. Now I can ask questions like, is this molecule very similar to another molecule? And then I can say, okay, whether this molecule, will it enter the brain when so it has all these properties that can be predicted and become useful for it to become a drug. This has been a different one. Many people try to solve this problem in a different ways, but we have taken a different step, and then this algorithm helps us to meet those conditions. Right? This is a foundational algorithm that what we had. But as a problem, this is not just one-step solution. There are many algorithms that are required to fill in the holes, and we start building each one of them in a different stages.
Internally, do you all give it a name, or are there sort of established technical ways in which to describe such models?
We have given it our own name. We give it our own name. Different ways of looking at is when other people think about certain algorithms, they look at what it does and where in the journey it applies. For us also it has been critical, because the drug discovery process is about searching, about trying to find a good drug and then try to make sure the drug is the most optimal one, right? So we have named it accordingly in the phases as well as the how we do it.
Do you want to keep the name confidential? And that's okay if you want. Just curious.
No, in the sense, the algorithm per se itself, right, is very deeply embedded within. We haven't named it, given a public name to it. in a very blind way, we call it just X3. It's the third version of whatever we started with.
Okay.
Okay.
How long have you worked on it?
I think we started sometime in 2019-20,
Okay.
right? And it took right now we are in the third version of it. But the outcomes of it is where some of the algorithm to a name, we
Yeah.
called something as a tesserix, because we really want to fit in a molecule and a protein to make sure they work together.
In the sort of generative AI space, people love to talk about so many billions of tokens and parameters and whatnot. In your world, what's a simple way of describing this model?
I think Amit has a very interesting take on it.
Hmm.
I think you should talk about why the smaller models and the smarter models work, and not necessarily the
Yeah, no. So while there are similarities in the way AI has impacted the development of LLMs and its applicability to drug discovery, yet there are profound differences. And one of the key challenge that I see is that the interaction space. If you look at the space in which the proteins and molecules are interacting, that's really huge. And compared to that, the experimental data of the interactions that we know is very minuscule. So instead of creating models which are really huge, which can digest a lot of data, the focus here is to make models which are maybe not as big as the LLM models, but which are smarter, which have the ability to generalize over this tiny, minuscule experimental data that is available. So and that's a profound difference. And that's one of the reasons why AI hasn't made drug discovery available on tap as of now.
So,
And
on tokens.
on tokens. So I mean, so that is the ongoing work in this field, and we've made some steps, and we hope to keep improving and make significant contributions, which finally impact human health and well-being.
So the data asymmetry, if you look at it in terms of like the amount of data that we need versus what is available, is why we need much better solutions to look at it. So you need to really thorough engineering approaches plus AI approaches together is what will solve the problem. Because when we talk about, say, the large language models and so on, they're learning from quite a lot of data that we have produced in an unsupervised way, and then being able to make better predictions, better whereas here the amount of data that is available is not as large. And the total amount of interactions that are possible are huge. So we have not still characterized most of it. I think I alluded to that long back, saying that our understanding of how these things interact and so on is still at its infancy. So as we build more and more conviction, it'll improve. And the other thing that I think Anand told, that the way I phrase it is a bit different in terms of like, why do we have so many algorithms? Why do we have a suite of algorithms and not just one algorithm which says that, okay, here is the drug, go and try it? As in, like, why are we not talking about it? Because the molecules that we are discovering, they are to be a drug, they need to be there at the right time, right place, in the right quantity, and stay there for the right amount of time. And all these are very, very diverse things that you expect from a single molecule. And what makes it more challenging is all these individual pieces of prediction have their own probability. And then when you add up all of these things, so these many diverse properties, these many different things that the molecule should be capable of, then it becomes a lot more challenging for it to actually translate. And all that on top of it, we also have one very simple constraint that the biologists and the pharma guys put in. So it should not do a few, as in like it should not be toxic, as in whatever it is. So this is a very simple one. So how do you define it? Oh, we know about 10 or 20 things that are toxic, but it should not be toxic at a very grand, at a broad level, which we don't know about also. As in like we haven't even defined the problem. And the expectation is it will not be the molecule will not be promiscuous on all possible proteins that exist in the human body. Yeah. So which makes it a lot more challenging.
I'm going to switch gears slightly to ask one or two questions related to your entrepreneurial journey. I mean, we spoke a little bit earlier about early funding challenges, the services versus core innovation, and so on. But if you look at each one of you, even before you started Peptris, you all had exceptional careers. What prompted you to actually take that leap of faith and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and that too in India, in a deep science / deep tech area where potentially I think challenges are more in many different ways?
I think midlife. So, but there are more to it. So incidentally, like if you really look at it, to be very honest, I think all of us at a very different level have been in product companies, like trying to build something big, something audacious, something like trying to go beyond an unsolved problem, or trying to build something which is like has not been built earlier. Yeah. And I think that gives us the conviction that yes, we can build something from scratch. We can take on, as in like further, as in whatever is the current state of art. So that conviction was, I think, inherently there in each of us from a DNA perspective. And that is why, as Shridhar talked about it, like between us, we never had a challenge saying that, okay, going behind drug discovery and not behind services was a very easy question for us to answer, because we all believed that primarily, yes, we can build something. Now, the second part of the question, saying that building out of India, building out of this one, I think that is quite, I don't think we have a very clear answer for it, saying that, yes, we were all convinced we want to do it only from here, and that is why we are doing this and so on. That I think is more where we met, how we met, and how we could solve the problem. And so there are questions that people ask us, like, why are you not building it out of the US, or why are you not raising money from the US, and so on. So for these questions, I don't think we have very straight answers saying that, no, we want to invest from here or something like that. We are open to being, having a foot outside and then try to get money, because at the end of the day, we are not solving problems which are very, very geography specific or very, very narrow in terms of the impact that it can make. We are really solving problems that impact the whole world. Yeah. When we talk about, I think most of us, whether it is like by choice of words or anything, we said human health. We never said health in the third world or health in this one. So we were really talking about health, lifespans, everything at a very, very generic level. And I think we as a company, our ambition is to look at human health very holistically across. It is not about kids. It is not about men, women, third world, first world. It is more general problems that are across the world.
Yeah, I think what drives us is more the unmet medical need, right? So if you look at the therapeutic areas that we want to work in, where we believe there is an impact to be made, are problems which are the tougher problems, right? So if you look at most companies would have a very standard oncology portfolio, right? Or diabetes portfolio. We are not going behind those targets in the traditional sense. We work in oncology, but we work with companies like, one of the companies that we work with, where they're dealing only with cancer metastasis, which is a far tougher problem to deal with than just an oncology indication, right? We're going behind rare diseases where even access to some of the animal models could be a challenge. So I think we are clear that we want to make a difference in human health. We want to go behind problems where there is a significant unmet medical need. So one of the areas that we are venturing now into is women's health, because there's a lot of focus on the underrepresentation of women in clinical trials, or the number of companies that actually want to work in the women's disease space, right? So we believe that there is a huge unmet medical need there, and there is a difference that we could make using our technology, and where we believe that this is possible, right? So I think as a company we want to make that difference. That's been the core for anything that we've done and what we've chosen as therapeutic areas to go behind as well.
Would you say being an entrepreneur has been far more fulfilling for you personally, more meaningful versus the corporate job?
I've been an entrepreneur, or at least tried to be an entrepreneur for the last 18 years, I think. So my first attempt at starting a company was way back in 2007, 2008.
Hmm.
It failed. It didn't get off the ground itself. So that was, a learning experience from that.
What were you trying to do at that?
I was trying to set up a CRO for doing
okay.
some of the services work
Hmm.
related to safety, toxicity, efficacy. Then when the opportunity came by in 2014 to start an organization of my own, I grabbed it with both hands, set up, what Venkat was alluding to earlier. I actually set up a not-for-profit to do some research in the infectious disease space, and built a very unique facility, which is now 11 years old, in Durbalapura. So that's going strong.
This is your foundation for
That's my
rare
foundation.
diseases.
That's my foundation for neglected.
Neglected.
Okay. So I think the thought process of starting something on our own to be able to make that impact was always there, and it was a coming together of everything, right? Meeting Venkat, talking about AI and how AI could impact pharmaceutical research. I think those are things which kind of brought the whole genesis of Peptris together. But I think individually, all three of them have been part of ventures as well, startup ventures as well. So I'd let Venkat, Anand, Amit talk about their experience. But doing something on our own has been, I think, ingrained for the last couple decades now.
So if we really look at it, our journey also in terms of this one. So we were at Philips, and I think
You and on.
All three of
Okay.
so I think it was a great place to be. Like we do cherish our time at Philips and the learning that we had and all. But at some point of time, we realized that we had to do something bigger, something different, and so on. That is when we joined a Valley-based startup. Yeah, and we built a product from scratch in that one. And again, it was based out of both the Valley and in Bangalore. So we were part of the team traveling quite often there, but built a large solved a large engineering problem from scratch. And that also gave us that, what do you call that audacity, saying that, yes, we can do something big, we can do something from scratch and so on. That conviction also put in. And of course, post that, we did some consulting as well as a failed startup. So with a lot of lessons learned from both of it. Yeah. And so when we started our conversations in, say, in 2015, 16 time frame, so we were like kind of doing that transitioning from being from the failed startup into full-time consulting versus starting up again. Yeah. And I think some of the mistakes that we did during our failed startup was something that helped us very clearly in the Peptris journey. I think you want to talk about that.
I mean, as I was saying, right, from company where we started in Philips, it was a normal conventional career per se, but there is always this itch to either learn, to do something different. That's when we joined another startup. We looked at trying to build a whole product from scratch, that hardware, software, and so on. So I think we were involved in most of the processes there. That takes away some form of what do you call unknownness, if I could put it like that. Saying when you venture into something, when you don't know anything, I'm not feared by it. I mean, just something that we want to learn. That is where we came in. I mean, we, as I said, right, we were not the biologist. We were far away from biology per se. But when Shridhar explained, there is an interest to learn, and that's what pulls you in, and that's where things are. We're all driven by that passion to learn something more, to learn something new, and that is what has pulled us all the way here.
I must say that one thing that I've always told them is it's easier for engineers to learn biology than for biologists to learn engineering, right? And the confidence with which they can speak about biology today, I cannot speak about AI, right? I think if I have to talk about algorithms, I would still hesitate to go to that level. But I see a significant difference in how they are able to grasp biology concepts and talk about it. So it's just been wonderful for me to learn that aspect.
Okay, I think I would love to explore that separate conversation. I'm sure it's really fascinating. I know I have to let you go. Beyond DMD, if you can give us a sense of next steps, as well as 5 years. 5 years is still a short period of time in a science-based company, but maybe if you want to hazard a guess, 10 years, sort of give us a sense of your vision for Peptris. So beyond DMD, next steps, and then vision for Peptris.
So, okay, if you look at it, we have always been like kind of saying that there are a couple of key focus areas that we have. So beyond DMD, of course, beyond rare diseases, we do have focus on inflammation and oncology that we've been like very vocal about. And one thing that we have been very recently, like I'd say for the last 6 months or more, where we have been doing some work, we want to add one is the women's health one that we were talking about. So this is from a program's perspective, as in like when we look at it, where do we want to apply our AI on? But of course, we do have our ambitions on like once we are trying to solve this problem, how better we can solve it, and what are the newer technologies that are entering it? How do we kind of like do that? And also, how do we go beyond what we are currently doing? Basically, we are currently doing small molecules only. We want to go behind peptides and cyclic peptides and so on over the next couple of years, which also play a very key role from a therapeutic value perspective. Yeah. So those are some of the things that we will be going behind. So if you really look at what is the real North Star, as in like say 5 years, 10 years down the line, like so we've started using AI, say from 2019. So when you ask us in say 2033 or 34, so what have you done? You've been doing small molecules. What have you done beyond that? If that is the question, that I think at that time, I think we should be really talking about personalized medicine and more like how we've been able to like kind of solve some of these intricate, unsolvable problems, go behind, the undruggable targets and so on. So some of these things that would naturally happen as a progression is that way we are thinking is going behind really undruggable proteins, going behind expanding the portfolio to beyond small molecules, and really trying to solve one part of the puzzle in personalized medicine.
For me, 10 years down the road, I would think if we have one drug on the market, which makes a difference in the lives of a few patients, I think as a company, we would have succeeded, right? So the North Star for me has always been, throughout my career, has been making an impact on the patient, right? And if we can do that for even one patient, I think all the money that we've spent doing that and the time that we've spent doing that has some meaning.
That's it for today. You can find links to Peptris' website and the bios of its founders in the show notes. If you're an aspiring founder in India, especially in biotech and life sciences, do look them up. I'll be back with another episode of Specially Focused soon. And until then, it's goodbye from me, Hari Arakali. Thank you for joining us.